Next thing we're going to talk about a little bit, and I'll talk about how it's handled in escrow, and then I'll let Derrick jump in on his property taxes. Property taxes is probably one of the least understood issues in our world, right? Yeah. When do they do? How, what period does that cover? Et cetera, et cetera. I'm constantly amazed at the seasoned people in our industry that will call and say, for example, right now we've got an installment that's coming up due when?
April 15th.
April 10th, right. What does that payment cover? I know you know.
Second half.
What period does that cover? Does anybody know? Covers 6 months from January 1 through June 30. It's called the second installment, second half. So our taxes, and again, I've kind of always gone back and scratched my head, like, who designed this? Because it makes no sense. So, we don't know who designed it, but anyway, the taxes are not due on a calendar year, they're due on a fiscal year. So in other words, the first installment is due November 1, delinquent December 10, covers the last 6 months of that year, which is right now it would be for 2012. The second installment of the property taxes is due February 1 and delinquent April 10th. No darn fooling around. November, December, February, April. No darn fooling around. That's how I learned it.
Never heard that before.
Really? It's how I've learned it. And I tell people that, and they kind of, it's what do they call that, an acronym? But anyway, so the installment that we've got coming up due now is due delinquent April 10th. It was due February 1st. It's now delinquent April 10th. It covers the first 6 months of 2013. So that's good information not only for us personally, because we all, if you own a home, you've got property taxes, unless it's impounded, you're going to have property taxes that are due. The tax bills come out to the homeowners first week in October, second week in October, something like that, and it has two stubs on them, one for the one that's due in December and one for the one that's due in April. If the homeowner has, if their mortgage is impounded, in other words, your mortgage payments include your property taxes, it's going to have a big blue thing across it that says information only. And that's exactly what it is, it's information only. How we deal with it in escrow right now, as far as the property taxes go, the question that I get asked a lot is, we've got a property in escrow, it's a standard transaction. The seller goes to you guys as the agent and say, well, my property taxes are going to be due. Say we're scheduled to close April 9th. What do? Do they write a personal check and send it into the county? No. Please advise them not to, because we call it with the county. The county has something called the bucket theory, and I don't know if you've ever, that's called the bucket theory. And they send, how many homeowners are there in LA County? How many of those homeowners send in a personal check on April 9th or 10th? Probably most of them. Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah. So they get them all in, and I'm always amazed at how quickly they cash the checks. They cash the checks right away. So in other words, they cash them and they throw them in a bucket. And then anywhere from 30 to 60, sometimes 90 days later, then they post them to that account. Derrick and I are dealing with a deal, and we're ready to close, and the seller says, well, I mailed my check on April 10th, and it's now April 12th. Well, they're not showing posted yet. What are we going to do? Title is going to hold that money, including the penalty, until the county gets around to posting that payment. And it's not a comfortable situation for anybody.
Nobody's happy.
Nobody's happy.
Nobody's happy.
Nobody's happy. So what the title companies and escrow companies have done together in collaboration is we will tell the seller, do not mail that personal check, go to the bank, and I tell them by April 1st, because it gives us 10
That's 'cause
days.
you're on top of things.
Well, trust me, we get them on April 9th sometimes. But we tell the sellers by April 1st to get a cashier's check payable to the county for the correct tax amount, give it to me, we make a photocopy of it, and we send it to him, or to the title officer. And
I
then,
like it.
I know.
And then what happens with that, and Diane's much more well-versed in this, so I'm glad she talked about the taxes more than I do. But what we do, if we have open files, like Diane's saying, open files that are going to close April 15th, the end of April, whatever, anything in the pipeline, all these short sales, what we do with those checks, we take all of them in mass, and there are hundreds, if not thousands of checks, and we take one of our, because we pay the taxes. In every transaction, we pay the taxes current. We have a person in our tax department, makes an appointment with the people down at the assessor's office. We hand deliver all of them, process everything on April 10th. So that's why she's saying, I like to get them in by April 1st. Sometimes they straggle in April 9th. It is what it is. But we pay the taxes on those so that when it closes escrow, we're comfortable knowing taxes were paid because we paid it ourselves with good money of a cashier's check, not a check we got to go back and try and get that bounced or whatever.
Yeah.
So we have, like Diane said, we've collaborated and found the best way to make sure that the taxes are paid so that when this thing closes, we're good to go.
So just the main thing to remember is if you do have a listing or a deal in escrow, and that's a really good thing for you to talk to your seller about, if it's a standard transaction. What's the situation with your taxes? Are they included with your mortgage payment? Yes? Okay, good. If they're not included with my mortgage payment, what's the next step? And you have to kind of look at the calendar and find out when you're closing and when they're due. And if you're uncomfortable with answering that question, just tell them to call us. They can call title, they can call us, and we'll tell them exactly what they need to do so that everybody's happy at the end, and that you're not having to go back to your client saying, well, this money is being held, because maybe they need every dime of what they're getting out of their house to go buy another house, to move, to do whatever, and all of a sudden
everybody needs every
everybody
dime,
needs
no
every
matter
dime.
what.
Yeah.
Well, and the most important thing that Diane said is when these people mail in their check, the county is happy to cash it on the spot because they need the money more than anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So Mr. Seller says, hey, Diane, my check's cleared.
And my check's cashed.
Money's out of my account. Why can't I have it back right away? Well, the county cashes a check, but they won't post it for months.
They can't, physically can't.
Right.
They
It's
physically
not enough
can't.
time, yeah.
And if we don't see it posted and we don't have verification that it's been paid,
Yeah.
We're gonna have to-
who's on the hook in every transaction for something that goes wrong? Title
Yeah.
company. Because
Yeah.
we make all the payoffs. It's our responsibility to make sure that everything's good.
And if you know in your conversations with your seller that their mortgage includes their property taxes, the follow-up to that is the next question you're going to get is, well, how am I going to get that money back? Because the most common thing is that they're going to get it back through escrow. Well, they don't get it back through escrow. Once their mortgage has been paid in full by the title company and the bank processes that payment and deems that account is paid in full, then they're going to take whatever's left in that impound account and send it back to the seller. So it's always important that the seller make sure that the bank has a forwarding address. I have a case right now where it's a split. Again, people are getting a divorce, and I've counseled them. Make sure that you call your bank and give them proper instructions as to how to disperse when they do. Otherwise, you're going to get one check payable to the both of you, and then you're going to have to fight over it.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and that happens too. So, but a lot of people think that their impound balance is going to be refunded to them through escrow, and it doesn't happen that way. So, any questions on that? These are things.